Hello, America. Justin Haskins here for Stopping Socialism TV. Thank you for joining me today. Before we get started, we have an incredibly important topic related to the Great Reset. But before we get started, I just want to tell you, please support Stopping Socialism and Stopping Socialism TV by liking our channel. Hit that like button on this video, and please subscribe to our channel. Big tech censors like YouTube and Google and Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of them, they're not doing us any favors, okay? You should know that just by the name of our channel, Stopping Socialism TV. They're not doing us any favors, so we need your help. Please hit that subscribe button and that like button. All right, today's topic is related to the Great Reset. For those of you that don't know what the Great Reset is, please go back and look at the other videos that I did with that other guy who's on this channel, whatever the heck his name is, about the Great Reset, because we cover it in great detail in many other parts, in many of the other videos that we've done on the channel. This video is specifically related to something that's happening with the Great Reset here in America, and that it's a huge part of it. And I think it's really the first big step forward for the Great Reset here in the United States. It's really focused on banking and the financial institutions. Now, this is something that I've talked about with Donald on the channel before. But it's something that's really ramping up. It's been getting more intense, increasingly more intense. And so it's something that we need to pay attention to. The basic idea behind this is financial institutions working alongside leftists and people in government are trying as hard as they possibly can to impose left-wing ideology, left-wing policy on the United States in this particular case, but really on the entire Western world and eventually on the entire global economy without actually having to pass laws. And the way that they're doing this is through banks essentially deciding to limit their financial activities, to debank people or limit their financial activities if those businesses or industries are not going along with left-wing ideology. So the most important example of it, the most recent and important example, is related to climate and energy policy. Over the past few months, what we've seen is an incredibly large increase in the number of financial institutions that have come out and said, not only are we not going to provide or do business in our own supply chain with companies that refuse to go green, not only are we ourselves, our companies, going to go green, but we are going to require all of our financing activities over the next couple of decades, because remember, we're talking about some of the largest financial institutions in the world. They have huge financing activities. They can't just turn this off overnight. But what they're saying is we're going to require all of our financing activities to be net zero carbon dioxide emissions over the next couple of decades. So what that means is that if you want to get a loan, and you're a bank, you want to get a loan and you're a company. Let's say you're a fossil fuel company, all right? You want to get a loan, you go to the bank. If you're credit worthy under, in previous eras, you'd get a loan from the bank. If you're credit worthy and they think that they can give you the loan and that you'll repay them and that you have an existing business relationship with them, they'll give you the loan. Now, if you go to the bank and you want to get a loan and you're a fossil fuel company, the banks that have agreed to sign up with this ideology, it's not even an ideology, the banks that have decided to sign up with this strategy for imposing their ideology, they are coming out and they're saying, look, we're not going to do business with you anymore. It doesn't matter how good of a lendee you are. It doesn't matter how likely it is that you're going to pay back your loan. We don't care how much money you have. We don't care whether this is a good investment or not. We're not going to lend to you if you are not, if you're a fossil fuel company. But it's not just fossil fuel companies. It says very clearly in a bunch of different statements from the largest banks in America, they're all on board with this, and it's all of their financing activities. So that doesn't just mean fossil fuel companies. That means any business, theoretically. That could even mean individuals eventually. So what these banks are saying, and I'm going to read you some of the quotes so you can see it for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. You should do your own homework. But what they're saying very clearly in all of these statements is that they are not going to do business with you if you don't go green. And the scary thing about this is there's no law or regulation that stops them from doing this. The Trump administration actually did put a regulation into place through the OCC, which is a federal agency. I think it's the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency at the end of his administration. But the Joe Biden administration, one of the first things they did when they came in was kill that regulation. So there are no regulations stopping banks from doing this. What's really scary is that they could do it not just on so-called green energy, which is not very green, by the way, but they could do it on a whole bunch of other things too. They could do it on guns. Maybe they won't do, maybe one day you'll wake up and you'll live in an America where banks decide, you know what, we're not going to do business with gun manufacturers, with gun sellers, with any individual that owns a gun. We're not going to do business with any of you. You could be a lawful citizen. You could be a lawful business. You could be doing everything that you should be doing. You could be a really good applicant for a loan or for other banking services. Maybe you just want a checking account. I don't know. And the bank could just turn around and say, you know what? Nope, we don't want to do business with you because you're part of the gun violence epidemic because you own a gun. It's not just about guns either. It could be literally anything. It could be literally anything. And again, all the big banks, and this is all part of the Great Reset. Go back and watch our videos about the Great Reset that we've done in the past. This is all part of the Great Reset. What these banks are saying is that they are going to control society. Whether you like it or not, they're going to control society. So here are some of the statements, because I've just been summarizing a lot of what I've been reading lately, but I haven't actually provided you with any evidence that shows that what I'm saying is true. So let me read you some statements so that you can see that I'm not making this up. This isn't some crazy right-wing conspiracy. This is something that banks are very openly talking about. In February, Bank of America said this: building on Bank of America's long-standing support for the Paris Climate Agreement, the company today outlined initial steps to achieve its goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions in its financing activities, operations, and supply chain before 2050. On March 1st, Jane Fraser, the CEO of Citi, which is one of the top 6 banks in the United States, said that we believe that global financial institutions like Citi have the opportunity and the responsibility to play a leading role in helping drive the transition to a net zero global economy and make good on the promise of the Paris Agreement. Sounds eerily similar to what Bank of America said. And notice that they are going to help drive the transition to a net zero global economy. On March 8th, Wells Fargo CEO, so this is just 1 week after Citi CEO, just a few weeks after Bank of America, Wells Fargo CEO comes out and says, climate change is one of the most urgent environmental and social issues of our time, and Wells Fargo is committed to aligning our activities to support the goals of the Paris Agreement and to helping to transition to a net zero carbon economy. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, all also made similar pledges. There's a whole bunch of other banks out there that have made this, that are some of the smaller banks, but these banks right here that I just mentioned, Wells Fargo, Citi, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, these are the 6 largest banks in the United States of America, and they're all saying that they're going to adjust their financing activities and adjust their policies to try to move the country and move the world toward this so-called green energy economy, whether they want to move in that direction or not, regardless of whether or not it makes financial sense to do it. Now, a couple of problems with this. As I said before, this could be anything. Today it's climate change. Tomorrow it could be, it could be literally anything. We've already had some banks do this with gun rights. They could do it with other things as well. Some banks have said that they're not going to do business with the Trump administration. Whether you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing is besides whether you like Donald Trump or not is besides the point. It's dangerous for all the financial institutions to come out and say, you know what, we're not going to do business with a former president of the United States or politicians that supported him or people who were part of his campaign. We're not going to do that. If a bank comes out and says that, and some banks have said things eerily similar to that, then That's incredibly dangerous. Think of the chilling effect that that has if banks all of a sudden start debanking any politician that they don't like for any reason, and they don't even have to justify it. Now, there are a lot of people who are, I've considered myself a libertarian for a very long time. I am in many ways a libertarian. I don't want government involved in my life as at all, really, if I can help it. But this isn't, and I know there are a lot of libertarians who would say, well, look, these are private businesses. There are even some conservatives. These are private businesses. If this is what they want to do, then they should be allowed to do it. The problem with that is, however, that we don't live in a free market. We don't live in a truly free market. And these gigantic corporations are in many respects the product of government. They're not creatures of the free market. Many of these financial institutions, they're not creatures of the free market. In fact, all financial institutions essentially are not creatures of a free market. They are all in some fashion or another dependent on some government program or the central bank or something that was created by government. And then they have special tax rules, they have special liability protections, they have all sorts of advantages over individuals and small businesses. So it's more than reasonable if these gigantic corporations are getting all kinds of special financial advantages, special tax advantages, special liability protections, that they should have to be open for business to everyone and not discriminate based on ideology, based on the views of those particular people, based on your business practices, or a whole variety of other things. If you're worthy, if you're credit worthy, and it makes financial sense for these financial institutions to do business with you, they should do business with you. They shouldn't be able to punish you because you disagree with them on whether electric cars are good for the environment or not, or whether you think that it makes sense for your business to switch from natural gas to solar panels. You shouldn't be punished for that. And yet that is exactly what's going on with these banks and financial institutions. Now, they haven't started actually enforcing these policies at this point in time. What they're doing right now is just setting the stage for that and saying, this is what we're going to be doing over the next couple of decades. A lot of them are saying by 2050, they're going to make sure all of their financial activities are net zero carbon dioxide emissions. So that would give them 30 years in order to make that happen. But over the next few decades, they're going to be rolling these policies out. They're going to be throwing their weight around. And again, it doesn't have to just be a climate change issue. It could be about anything, This is an incredibly, incredibly dangerous moment. And it's all part of the Great Reset. This isn't just corporations acting in isolation with just on their own because they support, the Paris Climate Agreement. This is them working in tandem with a whole bunch of other elites, ruling class elites, both here in America and internationally, to pursue an agenda that fits the goals of the left and the ruling class. And they're all going to get rich off of it. If you've seen our Great Reset videos, you'll understand how they're all going to get rich off of this. There is more than $100 trillion, people who have control, I should say, institutions and individuals and investors that have control of more than $100 trillion, who've signed up for the principles of responsible investment, which came out of a sort of a partnership with the United Nations, that have come out and said that we're going to put our money, our financial support behind people who support policies like the policies that we're seeing put into place now from Bank of America and Wells Fargo and other groups. So again, this is incredibly, incredibly dangerous moment for freedom in the United States and around the world. And it's something that we have to pay attention to. We have to pay attention to it. We can't look the other way any longer. The foundation for this has been built over the past 2 decades. And most people on the right and on the left had no idea that it was going on. And now that we're starting to see this emerge, we have to organize, we have to stand up against it, and we have to push back against it, Because if we allow the ruling class to control society by having an end run around the Constitution, control society through financial institutions, through corporations, through businesses, and that whole thing, right? If they're able to control society through the economy, through corporations and banks and regulate and all of that stuff, then not even regulations, then it doesn't even matter really what the government does. The government doesn't actually have to pass a law that says you can't have you can't produce too much CO2 emissions. If all the banks say, we're not going to do business with you, we're not going to allow you to get a loan for your car or for your house or for your business unless you go along with what we want, then you don't need a law that bans fossil fuels. You already have, in effect, that same thing going on just through the financial institutions. So again, this is an incredibly dangerous moment. It's really important that you share this information with your friends, with your family, with the old lady on the bus, with anybody that you possibly can. Get them to understand this isn't a right versus left thing. This is about the ruling class controlling society. This is about banks and large corporations and people who are going to benefit from this. Right now, they're pursuing left-wing causes. Tomorrow, it could be right-wing causes. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever benefits these people who are in the ruling class. If you're interested in more information about this topic or other topics related to the Great Reset, please go to StoppingSocialism.com. Watch more of our videos on Stopping Socialism TV on YouTube. We're also going to start putting up videos on Rumble and other platforms as well. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. And follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Parler at Justin T. Haskins. Until next time, please stay free and watch what your banks are up to, because things are going to get really crazy over the next couple of years. All right.